Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast with host Kat Ward. Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast, Paranormal Talk with Heart and Soul. Tonight's segment is live on United Public Radio Network 107.7 New Orleans, 105.3 the Gulf Coast, YouTube, Spotify, and any place you find your favorite podcast. You already know I'm your host, Kat Ward. So, my haunted hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. For segment 94, I'm joined by two incredible guests and dear friends, Selene and Ken Gerhard. Selene is a paranormal researcher, investigator, and experiencer with a passion for exploring the unknown. Alongside her is renowned cryptozoologist and author Ken Gerhard, whose decades of research into Bigfoot, dogmen, lake monsters, and other legendary creatures have made him one of the most respected voices in the field. And they'll be attending the Gatineau Sasquatch Conference on August 15th and 16th at Gatineau, Quebec, Canada, alongside myself and so many other amazing people. So please help me welcome Anne and Ken.
Thank you so much for having us.
Good evening.
Exciting to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. Like Ken, this is the first time you and I actually get to talk and meet. But Anne and I, we've met a few years ago. I think it was Dave Scott that recommended that I reach out to you to have my show on your network that you had at the time.
Yep.
And oh my God, Caravan.
It was Caravan Library of Lore, which was my podcast. Yeah.
Yes.
And the radio station was KPNL Radio. So yeah, you and I have known each other since about like 2020.
Wow. Yeah. That's a while. And we've always said that someday we're going to actually meet. Yeah. And I knew we would, but I was going through my head going, well, what's the circumstances going to get us to meet? And then the Gatineau Sasquatch Conference. And it's just like, oh my God, we're actually going to meet. So I'm super, super excited.
Yeah, me too. No, I was shocked, being from Oregon, way on the other side, and then now being in New York, and then you're only like 5 hours away. So it's just like, oh my gosh. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. Really looking forward to it. It's I've done a ton of Sasquatch, Bigfoot conferences and festivals over the years, but never one in Canada. And I've always wanted to. And that's really where Sasquatch conferences started. In the late 1970s, you had a very scientific one at the University of British Columbia. The anthropology department hosted a Sasquatch conference, and all the pioneers of the field were there. John Green and Rene DeHinden and Peter Byrne and all those guys. And then in the 80s, I believe there was another one in the 80s. I can't remember, maybe in the late 80s, probably again in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. And then another one in the 90s. So yeah, so that kind of the whole idea of a Sasquatch conference did start in Canada, just as the name Sasquatch is Canadian. So it's kind of all fitting.
I didn't even know that. Oh my. Shame on me. But thank you for educating me. That's awesome. Yeah. I also learned last year at the conference that Sasquatch in this area is called Sabe. I guess the indigenous call them Sabe here. I hope I pronounced it correctly. If not, I am so sorry. But no, I mean, attending the conference last year, I met so many amazing people, and I'm able to be a part of it. And I mean, they taught me so much last year. I mean, I held for the very first time and saw for the first time a cast Bigfoot. A footprint. Yeah. I was just like, oh my God. They're like, well, let's get it. Cause I asked for a picture with the person. I can't remember the people's names. I can picture them in my head, but I said, could I get a photo with you guys with the cast? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Do you want to hold it? I was so nervous. It's just like, I'm smiling. I'm going, please don't drop this. Please don't drop this. Cause I would be like mortified if that happened. But after we took the picture, I'm like, please quickly take this from my hands. But nothing.
Yeah, they tend to, depending on, we've got one here behind us. You can see on the wall there.
I saw that.
They tend to chip away a little bit if you're not careful with them. So you just have to, even when you're transporting them. I've had some funny situations taking them through security at the airport. I remember one
Really?
time in the San Antonio airport, I had a Bigfoot cast in my carry-on, and the TSA guy stopped the belt and yelled out, "We got Bigfoot!" And then all the
That's
security people
funny.
came over and were looking at it, and they were asking, "Is this real? Tell us about it."
That's
So
cool.
it was
Oh,
kind of
that's
fun.
cool. At first, I thought maybe they were going to wonder, like, what is this? Where did you, like, who, what are you carrying something like this? But I'm happy to know that they knew what it was.
Yeah, they recognized it. I
That's
think they
good.
dusted it off afterwards.
Yeah.
That's one of the things they have to do sometimes with weird objects. Is
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I've watched those border patrol and things like that from different countries, and the things that people try to smuggle into countries.
Yeah.
Pretty ingenious, actually, but the people are looking. They're pretty savvy too. But things that I wouldn't even have thought of. But yeah, you never know. A cast could contain illicit substances. You never know.
they don't know what it's just a big white thing with,
Yeah.
or usually has dirt on it or something. But
Yeah,
a
just
big
say it's
hunk of-
Sasquatch medicine.
big hunk of white something like a rock.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was pretty cool. I was really excited. I mean, the only other time I was maybe more excited was when I went to Toronto for the King Tut exhibit quite a few years ago. People who know me know how much I'm into ancient Egyptology. I have a whole bunch of Egyptian tattoos, and
That's awesome.
it's just a connection I've had since I was 7. So that to me was exciting. I got to meet Dr. Zahi Hawass, who is the leading Egyptologist over there. But let's not talk about ancient Egypt. We are here to talk about the big hairy guy himself. To me, I call him the king of the cryptids. That's what I call him, because he kind of is. He's the big guy out of all the cryptids. So whoever wants to start first, can you tell us how you got into the field?
So yeah, people ask me that all the time. It's obviously not a normal sort of life path, but my dad was a scientist, a forestry professor, to be exact, and so I spent a lot of time in the outdoors growing up. And I used to collect lots of exotic animals, snakes and salamanders. I had a pet alligator, caiman was my first pet. So I loved animals and critters, and I was also kind of raised on monster movies, Godzilla, King Kong, Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I loved all that stuff. So when I first heard about Sasquatch in 1975, I was about 8 or 9 years old. I saw a TV show or a news article, and I was hooked. It was like something that was kind of a monster, but also seemed to maybe it was just like an animal running around in the woods. So it just ignited my passion at a young age, and I've been researching for 40 some years now. And my mother was a travel agent, so she took me all over the world and many exotic locations where I would research this stuff. And then finally, when I was 15 years old, my father and I went to Loch Ness, and that's when I attempted my first
that's
field
amazing.
research in 1982, just interviewing people and walking around the lake with a little movie camera and stuff like that. So it's just been something I've been passionate about my whole life, and certainly never planned on making a living doing it. I've just been very blessed.
That's amazing. I mean, you were so fortunate to have a mother in that field, and she could take you traveling. I mean, I've never left. Yeah.
It's a big deal back then for travel. You get discounts.
No kidding.
Travel agents, so.
Yep. Especially today, it would be handy. But yeah, I mean, I haven't left North America, so I visited the States. But yeah, so that's quite the opportunity. Oh, someone would like to know where y'all from. Thank you, Mickey.
Well, originally I'm from Oregon, and then moved to Texas to be with this guy here. And then now we're up in upstate New York.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And I was born in Lansing, Michigan. My parents were Canadian immigrants, and I grew up in Minnesota for a short time, Michigan, Minnesota, and then Texas most of my life. But now I'm loving it up here in upstate New York.
Nice. Texas is someplace my husband and I would like to visit someday. Just want to say again?
It has a lot to offer. I mean, it's obviously a very large state with like lots of different habitats and things to see and do. So
Just want to take this opportunity to say hello to everyone in the chat. John, I am in Australia, Yowie country, same as Bigfoot. Welcome to the show.
Very cool.
Upstate. Nikki says upstate. Oh, okay, nice. Nice. It never ceases to amaze me where people are listening to shows, especially, like, of course, I look at where people are listening from mine. I mean, I like Australia. I had the United Arab Emirates. I was just like, what?
Oh, very
So
cool.
yeah, it's just Germany, like so many places. It's just so cool to see that there's so many people into the paranormal and they tune into shows like this. Oh, John, was question above for us in chat or those hosts Ken and Anne? Oh, okay. That's a good question. Why can't I deactivate that there? Well, we know where Ken and Anne are from. So, Anne, how did you get into all of this stuff too?
It's one of those things where I grew up with my grandparents and my dad, and my grandpa was super into, the History Channel, Discovery Channel, and then growing up in the Pacific Northwest, we always had the Sasquatch legends, but also the little people ones. And so I, watched shows with my grandfather, the Unsolved Mysteries, Goosebumps, and everything. So I had a love for the paranormal and the spooky from a young age. And then as I got older, it wasn't until 2015 or so when I was actually homeschooling my kids and teaching them about the development of entertainment and electricity that I came across podcasts, because I was trying to talk about like Rin Tin Tin and Howdy Doody. And I was like, oh, I wonder if there's any more radio shows on these days. And then that's how I came across podcasts and found that there's like Sasquatch ones and ghosty ones and all kinds of stuff, So of course I entered into the field and I had a podcast right off the bat, Caravan Library of Lore. I had that from 2016 until 2023, I think. And then I had my radio station where I hosted everybody's shows like yours on KPNL radio. That went from about 2020 until 2024. And then I transitioned into being a full-time author. So, nice. Author and researcher.
Yeah, and you've been on the show a few times. And I had forgotten what it was called. KPNL?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It feels like Paranormal.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I had forgotten what it was called. It was like it was so long ago, but it just seems like it was yesterday at the same time.
Yeah. That's how it kind of works in the field, though,
Yeah. So what would you like to discuss now? I mean, what are you researching? Are you both researching Bigfoot, or do you have separate things going on?
Well, actually, so for me, when I transitioned over into being more of a researcher and an author, I've always loved psychology. So I started to learn more about psychology in regards to our field. And so recently, I applied and got accepted into university. So I'm going to pursue my bachelor's degree in psychology.
Oh,
and so I've transitioned into really figuring out, because like Ron Murphy and I will be talking at the conference upcoming in Canada. Can't wait. Super excited. And we're talking about like the uncanny valley. So this is when you experience something that you're looking at that seems human, but it's not. It's really close. And it really activates some primal fear responses that we have because we're very predictive as humans. And when we can't use our regular prediction patterns, it can make us feel really like yucky and on edge and all that kind of thing. So that's kind of where my research is leading me. You can.
Not to interrupt, but I find psychology is very important to use when you're doing any paranormal research, investigating. It doesn't matter if it's ghosts or Bigfoot. I think psychology, you have to look into a lot of factors to figure out exactly what's going on. Don't just dismiss certain things because you don't think it's going to help. You got to try it.
Right. It's one of those things where I kind of feel like psychology is a little bit of the absent parent to our field. You know, because there are a lot of different things. So take the Sasquatch phenomenon, for example. If we have a predisposition where we have this bias and we believe in Sasquatch, so we go out into the woods, we're searching for it, and the sun begins to set and our eyes don't adjust very well to the dark. So we end up having what's called night myopia. So this is where our eyes are focusing and unfocusing, trying to see. And when that happens, our brain, again, back to the predictive patterns, it's wanting to fill in the gaps and understand what it is that we're seeing. So it's going to pull something from the subconscious or our belief system, and we can then see a silhouette of a Sasquatch in the woods that when we blink and we look somewhere else, all of a sudden now it's over there instead of over here, which can also lend to the teleportation type of, you know, belief system. Now, I am not saying that Sasquatch isn't real. I'm not saying that they can't teleport. We have no data to prove or disprove otherwise, but it's important to have these factors, or to at least know these different things, so that way we can rule out what it is not, instead of, you know, so.
Totally agree, yeah. Okay, before we get to Ken, I have a couple of questions here. Are portals mini black holes technology?
See, it's been such a journey for me, going from being an experiencer into researching, becoming more of a scientist, if you will, because I'm not going to college to become a clinical psychologist and treat anybody. I'm going there to be a researcher, a scientist. This is where I get tripped up on the word belief. And I'm not sure how to phrase it with portals and technology.
Yeah, so I know the idea of portals and other dimensions has become kind of a popular trope in cryptozoology and with regard to cryptids in recent years. It's kind of it's kind of a slippery slope at times because, you know, for one, the idea of a portal in other dimensions is all quantum physics. It's all super, you know, speculative physics. In fact, if you had a bunch of physicists sitting here, they would be arguing about, you know, the ideas like portals. It's not something that we just accept. Oh, there's portals, you know. So it's a hypothesis. It's not impossible that something like that could exist. And I think that there has been a general level of frustration throughout the field, say, for example, with Bigfoot, that we have not yet had definitive evidence in all these decades of research, no body, no bones, no conclusive DNA or anything. These creatures seem to be so elusive that many people have just kind of done something that's known as the God of the gaps, which is fill in, you know, the idea that, okay, we can't find Bigfoot, therefore it's from another dimension. You know, it's just kind of like it's easy for some people to make that connection. And a lot of that, to Anne's point, has to do with your cognitive biases and things like that, because there are some people that are more predisposed to embrace ideas like portals and other dimensions. It seems to make more sense to them based on whatever cosmic or spiritual view they may have of the universe. I personally think that there are some things, some cryptids like Mothman and Dogman and some of the really weird ones, that you might potentially try to make that connection more with, you know, the metaphysical, whether it's interdimensional, extraterrestrial, demonic, or whatever. But in terms of Sasquatch, I think I can make a pretty convincing argument that most of the evidence, the data points to it merely being a very elusive, very rare, upright walking hominin or great ape. That's my, you know, scientific perspective. But
yeah,
we talk about this stuff all the time. So
yeah, we do. I mean, because there's still things that I think would be amazing, like, you know, if they were real. I mean, I had that experience with that alien thing that I think I told you about, that's in my book.
Yeah.
it like materialized out of this, I don't know, smoke, fog, whatever. And I watched it walk down the road, and then it just disappeared into nothing. And then all of a sudden I see it in the window, and I took a picture of it. It's in my book, Haunted Inheritance. But if I really want to find out the truth, I need to try to like put my beliefs aside on that. And because I have no idea what it was, I have no data, no proof, there was nothing left behind. I have the picture, but even the picture, I've been willing to be like, okay, let's try to debunk it. And if it was debunked, okay, that's cool. That's, you know, we got to the truth on that story. But I don't know. It's so hard. It's such an incredible journey.
Mm-hmm.
So
there is another question by PW75 SAD FGSG. I'm just going to call you PW. How do cryptids cause missing time, if they do?
Ooh. I think, okay, so one theory could be that missing time is a mechanism of, okay, so if we were to have an experience and it was traumatic, and then we're going back and we're trying to level with this experience, our brain is going to kind of mix and match in order to protect us. It's a protective mechanism so we can survive the trauma. And so I think, well, I think that it's one of those things where it could be just a mechanism of the mind. Not saying that it's not true, because I know that there are people that have definitely been, and I believe I experienced something like that once. And so again, it's really hard. But I think I would take the stance of maybe if it was a traumatic,
the level of trauma, because we'd all pretty much agree that encountering a cryptid would be a pretty
it's a life-changing
and crazy thing. It's kind of like that liminal space between what is and isn't supposed to exist, and suddenly there's a whole paradigm shift in your perspective of reality. So I would buy that. I would say that's a great answer, and I tend to agree with that. The only cryptid specifically that I can think of that is associated with missing time would be the little people, which he mentioned earlier. I've investigated these little hairy, like mini Littlefoots, I call them in my book, in Central America. The Maya people believe in something called the Duende. And then in Alaska, I spoke to some Inuit people who have something called the Anukans. And then, there are many other in Oregon. I think they're the Gogane and Apakulo and Apakule. Anyways, this idea of little mischievous, hair-covered, man-like creatures. They generally live in caves or holes in the ground, and they are often accredited with trying to abduct children. And they are also adorned with different magical powers, and one of them is to alter time and to, like if you're taken supposedly to the lair of one of these little people, the time will pass, at a different rate than in the other reality. So I've heard that, but I can't think of any other specific examples where there's a specific connection between manipulation of time and the actual cryptid.
Right. There's some really good questions in here.
Yeah. Thank you for the questions. I just want to mention that, let's say Bigfoot is able to, you have an encounter with a Bigfoot and you do have missing time. And I'm wondering if infrasound would have a factor into that, because it could, I've researched infrasound a little bit when we're living in Alberta, and it does a lot of interesting, nasty things to the human body. And so it makes me wonder if people, or they see the creature, they get hit with the infrasound, and then they're kind of like not in shock, but kind of like
like a disoriented.
So I'm wondering if, because some people do say they've had missing time with Bigfoot. I don't know. Some people say Bigfoot and UFOs and extraterrestrials are linked. Again, I don't know. And but no, I'm thinking maybe that could be a reason. Just throwing that out there, but we don't really know.
Yeah, again, if you get into the weirder, unearthly types of cryptids, and we have to acknowledge that the name cryptid has really evolved through the years. Back
it has.
When I started, it was just Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and Thunderbirds and a few others, but now people kind of apply it to aliens
Wendigo.
and Wendigos and skinwalkers and all these things that weren't really intended to be. Cryptids were originally supposed to be unknown animals, and some of these things are so far out that they can't be animals. But I've interviewed many people that have encountered, the Dogman and Mothman and some of those creatures, and there's more of that paranormal aspect to their experience where they claim that maybe they develop, precognition, kind of psychic abilities, or their house becomes haunted, or, they see UFOs all the time. So there's kind of, I don't really have an explanation for it. But in that scenario, then yes, missing time, I guess, would be part of that cocktail of all these kind of high strangeness things that people talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something we can really dismiss. We got to do more research into that.
Right.
Stay open-minded. I think that's a good
Yeah, exactly.
Aw,
John says it's friggin' awesome to have a live stream with you guys. Yes, they are amazing.
Aw.
Oh, my dear friend Heidi. It's okay, Heidi. I know, running late, getting out the door. She is the biggest supporter of every show on UPRN. She posts every day of the week what shows are going to be on that particular day. And she's so supportive, and she's turned into a dear friend of mine as well. I mean, love her family. So thank you for being here. And yeah, there's John is in here. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge some people here, if you don't mind me taking a couple of minutes here. There's Pinocchio. There's Mickey. Scroll.
Look. I was watching Ken when he had a friend Bam Bam recorded some shows on VHS.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Yeah, where did that go? Where did that go? Down here this way? Do you see it? I just saw it not too long ago. There it is. Yeah, 25 years ago, he was watching Ken when he had a friend Bam Bam. Recorded some shows on VHS. Oh my God, VHS beta.
Well, I still have a friend named Bam Bam, but I don't talk to him as much these days.
Oh, okay.
Busy.
But yeah, Bam Bam and I appeared on at least one Bigfoot documentary about 20 years ago. And I guess people still where VHS is more common about 20 years. We still have a working VHS because I've got a bunch of classic cryptozoology and unexplained documentaries from the 80s and 90s that I don't know if they're all on YouTube. Some of them are, but
I don't think they are.
So you don't want to lose that stuff.
Yeah.
But thank you, John. Appreciate your long time support.
Yeah.
Oh, and Heidi says, hello, Ken and Ann. Much love from Boulder, Colorado.
Nice.
Heidi, please give my favorite haunted heart a hug from me. So she listens to the show, watches the show with her daughter and granddaughter, and they're just so sweet. So, here's one from John. Oh, thank you as well. PW, why do cryptids smell of sulfur? Does Mars smell of sulfur? I haven't been to Mars in a while, so I don't know. No, just kidding. Yeah, so that would be a question for you guys.
Well, in terms of Sasquatch, there's a little bit of a misconception that they always smell bad. Based on analytical studies of reports, they only are reported to have a bad smell like 11 to 15% of the time. So not all the time.
Yeah.
But when people do smell them, they say it's, really horrible. And sulfur is one descriptive word, as well as garbage, rotting flesh, red dog, just all kinds of horrible things.
Yeah.
Particularly in Florida, where you have the skunk ape. There's a very high percentage there, I think 14% of sightings. So you can understand if they're living in a damp environment, they probably don't have any Axe body spray, so there's not a lot of hygiene going on. They may defecate on their fur and not clean it off properly. They may eat dead things. There are many accounts of Bigfoots or Sasquatches eating roadkill.
Yeah.
So that would be a bad smell. Now, again, talking about the metaphysical ones, and I don't know, you may have some thoughts on this, but the black shuck, the hellhounds or devil dogs of the United Kingdom are often said to have that kind of sulfuric smell when they appear, or particularly when they kind of vanish into thin air. And that was always associated with the devil?
Yeah,
or?
demons, evil things. But here again, it's one of those things where, yes, there are historical reports of people smelling a sulfur smell when they're dealing with or poltergeist type of activity, or like what you said with the black shuck and all of that kind of thing. But also, it's important to note that not only can we have auditory hallucinations and sight, but also scent. So we can actually hallucinate smells as well. Not saying that it's always, but it's just another really important piece of the puzzle. I mean, it's just amazing what the human body is capable of. So then if you're trying to fill in the gaps, then your body might go to a bunch of things, especially if you have a history with experiences, and if you're more prone to go to fear, then certain things can manifest that way, I think. So
yeah, I could see that.
Interesting. I just want to bring somebody in for a second. Mr. Joe Montaldo. Hey, boss.
I was just stopping by to listen to the big feeds, man.
Okay.
I was in the studio when I seen it pop on the screen. So I said, because I can sneak in the back door without having to go anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And and I think I sent you the other day. That was an invite to the other show.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway,
we'll chat about that later. Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about y'all. I was enjoying the conversation. Hey,
okay. I just want to bring you in for a sec to introduce you. This is the owner of UPRN, Joe Montaldo.
They get nervous when
Big Daddy.
They get nervous when I just randomly pop in again.
Like, oh no, what did I do wrong? Thanks for being here, Joe. I'm
just listening, so just ignore me now.
Okay, I'll ignore you. Oh, that was funny. I saw him pop in. I'm like, oh.
Awesome.
Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, it was nice to see the big man himself. So when it comes to, I've heard some people say that Bigfoot, because you probably heard all of the speculations. Some of them say it's a spirit protecting the earth, some kind of a guide. I've actually heard a very few people say that they think it might be an extraterrestrial, and that's their astronaut suit, for lack of a better term, and that's why they look that way. And I'm just like, I don't know. Have you ever heard, like, what other weird sayings that Sasquatch could be have you heard?
So actually, this is something that Ron Murphy and I have been discussing, and something that we were considering is that Sasquatch could actually be an archetype of the wild man. And this is something where, in this day and age, we are so far disconnected from our roots. So we are no longer grounded. We never really look at the stars. We live by artificial light. And we ended up really having our villages, if you will, and we became us, and then everything else became out there. And then as things became out there, we also kind of monsterized it a little bit. So could Sasquatch come to somebody, if it was a spirit, to remind them of their connection to the earth, that wild man and that connection that we used to have? Mm-hmm. Or could it be a psychological thing where we are projecting and we're seeing it, and our mind, our subconscious, this would be more like Jungian psychology with the archetypes and individuation, where then we may see it or think we experience it because it's time to face that part of ourselves and integrate that part of ourselves. So that's also some newer ideas of what Sasquatch could be.
Yeah, my people always want to know the weirdest stories, and I'll just throw one out there, which is a pretty famous account from Frederick, Wisconsin from 1974. There was a gentleman driving down the road one morning, and he claimed there was a flying craft, like a disc-shaped craft, hovering above the road, so he couldn't pull forward. And he said he could look up at this flying saucer through the window, and he saw this Sasquatch sitting there, like controlling the, like operating. So that's the weirdest Bigfoot, one of the weirdest Bigfoot stories I've heard. And anything's possible, and I try to stay open-minded. But in terms of Sasquatch, the really compelling thing to me is that things like Sasquatch or Bigfoot really did exist 2 million years ago in Africa. There were several upright walking, hair-covered, broad-shouldered, ape-like creatures that looked just like miniature Sasquatches. They weren't as tall. So, I mean, given the long amount of time between when they supposedly died out, we're talking about Paranthropus and the robust Australopithecines and some of these hominins we found fossils for. If things like Bigfoot really did evolve, and they weren't direct descendants of humans, they were like side branches of our bushy human tree. If things like Sasquatch really did exist, millions or hundreds of thousands of years ago, why isn't the most obvious answer is that they just survived into modern times and maybe got a little bigger, and they're very rare and elusive, and so they're just kind of something that people don't see very often. To me, that makes the most sense scientifically, rather than jumping to, they're interdimensional, or they've been created in a laboratory by scientists, or so again, I'm open-minded, but I tend to follow. My dad was a scientist, so I kind of follow that deductive reasoning.
Yeah.
That makes the most sense to me. They look like something that should have evolved on our planet. So, but who knows?
And look at humans. We used to be a lot shorter, and we've gotten taller and taller. And who's to say that didn't happen to Sasquatch as well?
Yeah, particularly during the Ice Age, the Pleistocene, because warm-blooded animals, endotherms, tend to get bigger and bulkier in colder environments. Hence, up in Canada, everything's going to be bigger, from a wolf to a mountain lion to a, beaver, to any of those animals. But if you start coming down farther south to warmer climates in the United States, all of those animals shrink down. And that's called Birdman's rule. So if Sasquatches live in colder, which they tend to, in mountainous or colder environments in the north and stuff like that. And to match that, you have accounts of southern Sasquatches. I mentioned the skunk ape earlier from Florida and Texas. Most eyewitnesses estimate them as being a little bit shorter and smaller, maybe only like 6 feet tall, as opposed to 7, 8, or 9 feet tall up in Canada or, Alaska. So
interesting. Yeah, even Australia, there's different. I had a lady on. Oh, I can't remember her first name. I can't remember. Oh, geez. I am so sorry. I forgot your name. I can picture her face right now. But it was interesting that I didn't know there was so many different types of Sasquatch, I guess, shapes and sizes. I mean, they vary throughout the world. But Australia, I didn't know there was such a diverse size in like yowies and things like that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, there's, and that happens with speciation, where you have animals spread around wide areas in different habitats. They look a little bit different sizes. In Australia, I think you were referencing, we were talking about the little people a while ago. The Jundajee are like the little people of Australia that the Aboriginal people talk about. So they're like little yowies.
Yeah, little yow. Oh, gee, that's so cute. Let's see. Here is one. PW asks, what do you think the tree structures are? Good question. Thank you.
Well, I mean, so him and I went hiking the other day, and we went off on this one trail, and all of a sudden you remember those structures?
Yeah, there were some weird looking,
and they were big sticks. Like, it was really
lean-to, teepee,
and it looked like this little village, which was cool. It was done by people, and because there was like carvings of little signs and stuff that were there. But the way that some of these trees fall, that I've also seen on other of our hikes, I can see how somebody might deduce that it's a tree structure when all it is something that like fell. So in my personal opinion, I haven't seen anything that would be like, oh my gosh, there's a strange structure. Something non-human would have had to have done it. But that's just in my reality, though. So I think that it's natural or human made. So that's your
I've seen a few things that are pretty weird that I don't think are necessarily made by humans or just deadfall or microburst. Microburst, of course, when a little tornado can make some weird looking things in the woods. But one was at a place called Monster Central in Louisiana, where me and Bam Bam used to go out and do research. There were a lot of sightings on this property in Louisiana, and one time there was a full-grown tree. It must have been, I don't know, a foot, in diameter, hundreds of pounds, that was basically laying in the fork of a living tree, a huge big tree, and it was perfectly balanced to the point where you could barely touch it on one side and it would kind of teeter-totter back and forth. But we couldn't see where this other tree had come from. There wasn't a root system or where it had fallen or anything like that in the proximity. So it seemed like it had been placed there. And granted, it probably would have taken a team of Sasquatches, I guess, when I think how heavy this tree is. But that was weird. And when I was doing research in Florida, I talked about the skunk ape a couple of times, a place called the Green Swamp years ago. I was doing an expedition down there with some other researchers. And we found a lot of weird, structures where things seemed to be constructed to where they were almost like pointing in a direction. When we talk about the tree structures, things are kind of leaned together in X patterns a lot of times like this. Sometimes they'll have a predominant pointing direction or something that seems to stand out. So I followed a line of these tree formations that were spaced out, dozens of yards apart. And at the end of several of these formations, I finally came across a little hidden pond that was like hidden by brush and obscured. So it was just like, wow, it's almost like this was like a system of like markers pointing me or leading me to this pond. So that's pure speculation, but maybe people have talked about this. Maybe they use these things as some type of road signs, I guess. Markers, signs,
markers,
travel through the wilderness. And
my question is,
find things. I don't know.
Have you studied the Native American practices on what they've done with trees at all?
With glyphs and things?
No, I thought that there was something about like either the way that they planted or twisted or did something to trees.
I'm not sure about that, but I know that many Native American people would like leave rocks on trails in certain places as kind of like markers, like I've been here and I recognize this kind of thing. But
something to look into.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. I think there could be a connection. There's no documentation of a Sasquatch actually making one of these structures that I'm aware of, but it does seem, if you spend enough time in the woods and you go to an area that's alleged to have more Sasquatch activity, there seems to be sometimes more and weirder tree structures. That is a thing that I've encountered through the years. So who knows?
This is a good one. PW, and thank you everyone for all your questions. Really appreciate this. Does having opposable thumbs rely on living in trees for 1 million years?
Oh, gosh, an physical anthropology question. Well, of course, all primates have opposable thumbs, and it's very useful in terms of grasping on branches and what we call brachiating, or living in the trees, arboreal living. So, for example, primates, monkeys, and apes developed with these very flexible joints in our shoulders that allow us to kind of swing from branch to branch and grab branches and things while we're walking on lower branches. And so the opposable thumb was very beneficial in terms of being able to get a secure hold on things as we were navigating through the trees. So yes, there's a lot of evidence that, obviously primates have evolved with this specialized adaptation, and it's been very handy in terms of humans. We've learned how to make a lot of cool things with these opposable thumbs and do a lot of precise manipulation that other animals can't do. Now, with regard to the Sasquatch hand, there is actually a data set of handprints, giant, massive Sasquatch handprints going back to the late 60s in Washington State, Ivan Marks, then a guy named Paul Freeman, and Tom Shea in Kentucky. Anyways, they're pretty consistent, and they're huge hands. As you would imagine, a Sasquatch has a huge hand.
Imagine.
Put their hands in the ground and someone will see that and make a cast of it, just like the footprints. But the fingers, despite being incredibly fat, are very short compared to ours. and they do have an opposable thumb, but it's actually lower down on the hand than ours is. So it's almost like a poorly opposable hand.
Kind of like a chimpanzee foot. You know how that little, I'm going to call it a big toe or a thumb that's just kind of like, it's weirdly placed.
Yeah, kind of like that, but so
But on the hand,
Sasquatch
yeah.
is supposedly they grasp things like trees like this with their fingers, but not necessarily wrap their thumb around. At least that's something that's been discussed in Bigfoot circles for years. But yeah, who knows?
Interesting. John says Yahweh's behaviors are like our Sasquatch, which is interesting, being on different continents. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, compelling.
PW, how are cryptids able to follow someone 1,000 miles away? Is that a UFO dropping them off? Or, yeah.
Are they? I mean,
teleportation. Who knows? Yeah.
Some of these declarations, and I do appreciate everyone that's listening in and getting good questions, but the thing about the cryptid field is there's a lot of declarative statements that cryptids do this, or why do they do this? And it's like, well,
there are no definitives.
Yeah, what is the evidence that they do a lot of the things that we allege they do? I think I would encourage people to be citizen scientists and to proclaim things like, I have a hypothesis that, or there have been claims and allegations that they do this, as opposed to saying they do this, they don't do that, because a lot of that stuff is like, it's unknown. So much
There's
of this is
know.
unknown. We don't know. It's a lot of speculation, unfortunately.
And we have heard of people having a Bigfoot sightings, and then they go home, and then the Bigfoot seem to follow them. It's like,
oh, maybe is that what the reference was?
I think so, but
followed home by. Okay,
but it's not the same thing. I mean, I can see a cat in Tennessee, and then I can also see a cat in Oregon. You know what I mean? So maybe
I see what you mean. Yeah,
lucky enough to stumble across one in two different areas.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with too much of that. I would say there are obviously people that live in specific areas, usually in very forested or rural areas, that are kind of in hot spots and have situations that we refer to as habituation, where they may get visited repeatedly by a Sasquatch or several Sasquatches over a period of years, because they're living potentially in the range of their habitat. And so it's not really following them per se, but maybe multiple encounters or experiences because of they're in the right place.
Right. Like I've had an experience in Ohio, and I've also had experiences in Oregon, but where I was in both places, where both places had activity. So
okay, does that increase your chances if you're in an area of high activity? For sure.
Inundating witness testimony is evidence in court. Civilian science is subordinate. I thought I said the word out loud. I actually didn't. Subordinate to military science, which is subject to secrecy laws.
Okay.
Thank you for the information.
Yeah. Appreciate you, PW. And everybody else who's asked questions.
Yeah.
John, everybody, you guys are amazing. So I'm just going to throw this out quickly. So being on the network, there was a time that I didn't want to do video and I didn't want to do live. Well, here I am. I started doing video, but it was pre-recorded. And now I'm starting to do, now that I'm retired, I can do more live episodes. And so I apologize if I miss anybody's questions or comments, because I do get a little overwhelmed with listening to the guest and looking at the questions and comments and everything. So please bear with me. I just want to mention that, saying that I'm not ignoring you. I might have just, it's there's a lot there to process for me. I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to it. So, yeah. So.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Thank you. It's not as nerve-wracking for me anymore to do the lives, and I just kind of watch the chat and everything. But yeah, I'm getting there.
Very cool.
So we have just a few more minutes, and I just wanted to touch on the conference coming up in August just a little bit. This is amazing, and I just want to thank you guys for agreeing to attend the conference.
Oh, it's an honor.
Oh, geez. Like I said, last year I met so many amazing speakers. I can't think of all their names right now because there's so many. But yeah, and some of them are going to be making another appearance this year. So are you able to tell us a little bit about what you two decide like you're going to be talking about there? Any specific topic on Bigfoot?
Um, well, first of all, I have to say that it's a real thrill. Very exciting for us to be able to be involved in this conference up in Canada. When I heard about it, the first word that popped in my head was beauty, because there's the Canadian in me. But I'm actually going to be doing a presentation that I've been doing at other Bigfoot conferences around the U.S. this year, titled Meldrum's Best Evidence. And I am essentially talking about the late Dr. Jeff Meldrum, the physical anthropologist, leading Sasquatch researcher from Idaho State University, who passed away last September, sadly, tragically. Huge loss for the field. And certainly no one will replace him in terms of his qualifications as an anatomist, a physical anthropologist, and just a very brilliant scientist. But I want to attempt to keep some of his evidence and arguments alive. So I'm talking about, the footprint evidence in detail, because he had very specific hypotheses about, the design of the Sasquatch foot based on the data set of cast evidence. He had a lot of ideas about the Patterson-Gimlin film, in terms of what he saw in the structural anatomy and the walking gait and stuff that were very convincing to him. He did talk a lot about, the changing paradigm shift in physical anthropology, evolutionary biology, whereby you now have the timelines of extinctions of ancient hominins, again, things that look like Bigfoot. We thought they died out millions of years ago, and now things that look like Bigfoot's only died out, only 200,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. So almost within, so that, and also the overlap between humans and other, species of hominins that overlap. So it's like, in the old world of science, it used to be, there's no way that something like Bigfoot could have survived into modern times. But as we find more fossils that are more and more recent, and look more and more like a Sasquatch, it's like, wow, some things like Bigfoot did exist pretty recently. So again, that's pretty compelling evidence they could still be here. So it'll be a very scientific presentation. Hopefully, like I said, I'm not an anatomist or a physical anthropologist by any stretch, but I have studied the material quite well, and I knew Jeff Meldrum for 20 years, worked with him many times and had many great conversations with him. So
nice. I look forward to it.
For sure.
And
so I'm actually speaking alongside Ron Murphy, and we are going to be talking about the Uncanny Valley. So with our presentation, we go into a lot of like how our own brains work. We go into some of the history of humans and our, I mean, it's hard. I kind of feel like that already sums it up, really, just how we respond to uncanny stimuli. And
it's a fascinating presentation. I saw her and Ron give it in Pennsylvania a few weeks ago. And she was talking about the wild man archetypes earlier. I mean, you go back to, ancient Babylon and stories of a creature called Enkidu and, Grendel and, the Woodawus in Europe. So, I mean, there's these ideas around the world. We were talking about worldwide, right? Worldwide legends and traditions of big, powerful, hair-covered man-like creatures running around in the woods. And so that's a component of their presentation, but it also does look at the cultural significance of that, because humans did coexist with things that look like Bigfoot at one time. Do we carry that as a living memory? We go over epigenetics. How
fear is passed down.
It's a very complex ideas, but very, very interesting.
Thank you.
Well, it's fascinating because, for the paranormal, I used to think paranormal was just ghosts, but then as I got into it a little bit more, I realized no, anything that's not normal, UFOs, it all kind of falls into that category. And I find it so fascinating that so many cultures and different beliefs around the world are seeing the same entities. They might look a little different. They might have a different name because of where they're located, but people globally for so long are seeing the same things. And to me, that's fascinating. Way
Yeah.
before the internet was even a thing, because they couldn't really talk to each other and say, okay, yeah, let's say we've seen this. So, I mean, how is it that there has to be something to it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed. I think the one thing that everyone maybe listening in can agree on is there are certainly things in our world that we don't understand yet and don't know, and there's a lot of great mysteries still to be kind of explored and discovered. So that's what makes something like this conference in Gatineau so exciting, because we bring all these people together and we all have kind of different ideas and perspectives, but we all have a love and a passion for mystery, and so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, part of me wants to find the answer. Part of me doesn't want it as well. I mean, it's just, John, Dr. Meldrum will be missed. Definitely his cast collection was awesome. I can just imagine how many casts he had.
Well, they're now at the North American Bigfoot Center in Boring, Oregon, in the custody of Cliff Barrickman, who, so there's going to be possibly a Jeff Meldrum wing of that museum at some point. With all
that'd be cool. I'm sure he has enough to put in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Cliff had about 300, and I think Jeff had 300. And there was some overlap because they would switch casts, but 300 of the best examples, and also some examples of hoaxes. We know that people have hoaxed footprints, and we use those for comparison to see how that's done and stuff. So,
are you able to tell us how you can tell from a hoax to something that you think might be legitimate?
Well, the basic morphology of a Bigfoot cast like this one. Yeah. This is a pretty standard shape. You don't have to. I'm not going to hit you on the head or anything.
Yeah, I'm doing it so that people can see.
The width, there's no arch. There's no arch. It's a flat foot, very wide compared to the length. 1:2 ratio. Smaller, more proportionate toes compared to a human. Average length is about 16 inches, something like this. And you can usually see good toe stems and sometimes a mushrooming effect on the toes, and dynamics in trackways where they slip and, the foot changes shape and stuff. So those are the convincing ones that we found, that usually a cast, faked ones, and I don't see too many very often, but a guy showed me a picture recently at a conference and I was like, yeah, man, sorry, that's definitely been faked. And he was like, oh, someone's pulling one over on me. But Dr. Grover Krantz, I know we're running over, had a list. He was a late anthropologist who had a list of 15 specific things that designated or authenticated a Sasquatch track. He passed that list along to Jeff Meldrum. No one else knew what these 15 were. And now Cliff Barrickman has the 15. And he let me peek at a couple of them. So
lucky.
People that have studied the footprint evidence the most we have a secret code that we can use to kind of designate whether something's been faked.
Nice. Quick question, because we are almost out of time. So do all footprints, are they all flat, or do some of them have an arch, or are they all flat?
Many of them have a pressure ridge, which is a mound of dirt pushed up at midfoot. That's something I'll talk about in my presentation. And that is due to the presumed midfoot flexibility, something called flexibility at the mid-tarsal joint, transverse tarsal joint. I'm sorry, it's a mouthful.
It is.
Gorillas and chimps have that. Their foots are very flexible. Humans have a very rigid arch that we've evolved in our genus. So we can't bend our foot in the middle to create really tight pressure ridges. We can make a little mound of dirt sometimes in the sand, but
which feels amazing. Well, thank you so very much, you two. I really, really appreciate this, and I can't wait to meet you next month. Could you tell the listeners, the audience, where they can find you?
You can just anselene.com. That's my website. And then Facebook, Instagram is all just Selene, SELENE.
Yes, thank you again for having us, Kat. I do have a lot of social media, YouTube and Facebook and so forth, but I would encourage people to check out my Patreon site, which is Exploring Cryptozoology. I have online classes. I do a podcast exclusive to Patreon and daily posts about different cryptids and things. So Exploring Cryptozoology on Patreon is a good place to find me.
Thank you again.
Awesome.
It's been such an honor.
Oh, the honor is mine, really. If you have a few moments, I'm going to say my farewells to the audience, and then we can chat just for a couple minutes. Oh, and a quick thank you to Joe as well for making a little appearance. So a huge thank you to my special guests, Anne Selene and Ken Gerhard, and to you, my wonderful haunted hearts, for tuning in. I also want to thank UPRN 107.7 New Orleans, 105.3 the Gulf Coast for carrying the show. And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. It truly does mean the world to me. And if you'd like to be on the show, you have guest or topic ideas, or just want to say, hey, Kat, drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd also love to hear from what country you're listening from. So don't forget to mention that in an email as well. So until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. Much love to you all.